Hello everybody, welcome back to the Helix. Today on the Helix, we'll be talking about the modern ban list again. And this time we're going to be talking about the cards that weren't there when the ban list started. The first card I want to talk about on the ban list is Blazing Shoal. Blazing Shoal, in conjunction with cards like Inkmoth Nexus, proved too efficient and fast for what Magic wanted to be, the slow format of Modern, and was thus unacceptable. Our next card's utility was the real danger. Green Sun Zenith wasn't dangerous because it was too efficient. It was dangerous because it could go get too much. The problem with it that put it over the top, though, was Dryad Arbor being a 0x to search. That meant that this card could even be a ramp spell for 1 mana. Another unique card to the modern ban list is Punishing Fire. Punishing Fire proved too useful with Grove of the Burnwillows, which allowed you to give your opponent a life, and then for 1 mana, get this card back to your hand. It is a very useful kill spell for 2 mana, and when it comes push to shove, it's doing 1 damage for 3 mana. Making our way to common rarity, Cloudpost was an interesting alternative to Tron decks. You didn't need all 3 to get extra mana out of them, and you also got the extra life off of Glimmerpost. This meant that you could still make turn 3 cons while also gaining a little bit of life on the side. One of the more interesting choices on the ban list is the banning of Ponder and Preordain. The argument for these cards is that they provide too much consistency for decks that would abuse them, but the other cards on the ban list are always key cards to certain decks, rather than this being a more general, consistent boosting card. Wild Nicottle is another peculiar card that was banned for about 2 years and is now as free as any other card in Modern. Modern sees a lot of interesting decks, and the aggro deck around Wild Nicottle, called Zoo, is one of the most peculiar, as it is also one of the most straightforward, and its lack of versatility really limits it against a lot of the other archetypes in the format, meaning that even with Nicottle itself, the deck is still not a very viable contender. The last card that was banned, in response to the first Pro Tour of Modern, was Rite of Flame. Rite of Flame was a quote-unquote red dark ritual, meaning that you got 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 mana off your 1 spell. This meant that it was a very valuable card to the Storm deck, and the banning of this card was in hope that Storm would be very limited. But this did not happen, and would result in more consequences for the red and blue deck. A year after these bannings, an interesting ban was made, in the form of Second Sunrise. Second Sunrise had been featured in a deck that had won the Pro Tour, which had happened just before this ban list came out. This ban list also saw the rise back of Valakut the Molten Pinnacle, seeing one archetype leave and another one arise in the form of a deck called Scapeshift, which gets out 8 lands and automatically wins the duel. The Grand Prix season following this Pro Tour saw the death of Seething Sun and Blood Red Elf. Seething Sun was also another important card in the Storm deck, which Magic had already decided was an unhealthy choice for Modern, as the deck did not give the chance for other combo decks to really blue, even though that wasn't necessarily true, and other combo decks were actually being more popular and being more successful than the Seething Sun deck. However, Blood Red Elf was our other banned card at that time. That Grand Prix season had seen the birth of the mid-range decks like never before, and the mid-range decks, particularly Junk, were the most powerful decks in that format, as they had many answers to different things. However, Jun wasn't necessarily the problem, as the banning of Blood Red Elf might suggest. It was actually Deathrite Shaman, and we saw its death only a couple months later. Deathrite Shaman was one of the most powerful choices in the format, as it gave you a lot of potential to answer many threats, along with the fetch lands in the format gave you a lot of opportunity to get more mana off of it early in the game. As we saw the death of Deathrite Shaman, we saw the birth of Bitter Blossoms. Bitter Blossoms spits out 1/1 flying tokens for the cost of 1 life each turn, making it one of the most powerful enchantments in Magic, and it'll be interesting to see if it really finds a home, as the last Pro Tour saw almost no play with the powerful enchantment. As recently noted, Valakut is a powerful deck that is now legal in Modern once again. Valakut's main power is the card Scapeshift, which allows you to sack 8 of your lands, to search your deck, and put in play 8 more. And as long as 6 of them are mountains, this means that you're doing damage 3 per mountain. Now that we've gone over all the modern cards in the ban list, we see that they get a lot of bad rap for an unruly reputation, and for the most part, it's well deserved, and for others, it's just more form-fitting to what Magic wants Modern to be, and that necessarily hasn't come true, and it'll be interesting to see if they eventually see this, and will go and unban the cards that they have misjudged. Either way, it is important for people to be prepared for when these cards do come back in the format, as we've seen in the form of Valakut and the misjudged Bitterblossom. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, Jesus loves you.